Welcome back to the highest level of Beyond All Reason with our first commander, with the bot lab in the blue. We have ZLO. Facing off against our pro in the bottom left in the red. We have Randy. And speaking of pro, if you'd like to promote this channel, it'd be awesome if you could smash that like button and maybe even subscribe. And Jimmy, what are we... Quickly, people actually care about the builds in this game. 355 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. I've been getting into it. I'll probably do it anyways, but thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far, and hopefully this 1v1 showdown will make it a little bit better. Already a split. Both players opting for different tech paths, despite the fact they're both Cortex. The Rascals from Randy coming across, clearly going to give away that it's a vehicle plant, as opposed to ZLO, who's opting for the bot lab. The vehicle's obviously a lot quicker, but generally more expensive and harder to control, whereas the bot lab gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to taking, especially those early metal extractors. Already, one of those constructors queued up to build an entire wind farm on its own. It's good to have plans in life. And that will help as we see these spectators enjoying some strategic art there to start things off. Always impressed by the flexibility. But just in case, I think a lot of people are starting to get the gist of it, but in case this is your first time, the metal per second is the most important thing. Metal is required for everything, and the metal extractors are top priority and top efficiency for gathering it. The metal per second is a pretty good indicator of who's winning the game at the moment, at least economically. Energy per second is required to make that metal into anything important, whether it's the lowly grunts or later on, potentially juggernauts. I kind of doubt it. We're going to see it in 1v1, but still. And putting it all together is build power. BP for short. If you don't have enough build power, it doesn't matter how many resources you have. You're not going to be able to spend them. So, past that, we have total metal produced and energy produced throughout the game, giving you a better gauge of how things have gone. The current army value, including the commander in metal. The defense value, turrets, stuff like that. Energy, economy value, which includes wind turbines, the metal extractor themselves, and just the total damage done, which negligible so far, but clearly ZLO taking it very seriously as he's got his grunts spanning out across his side of the map. Meanwhile, Randy, another benefit of those vehicles early on is the vehicle constructors have the highest build power of any of the basic constructors and move more quickly, so they can maneuver around more easily and assist that lab. And because of the way metal and energy and build power work, that is why instead of building like 5 bot labs like you do in, say, StarCraft, you end up just jamming all your build power into one and constructing units sometimes ridiculously quickly. Once you get them under like 1 or 2 seconds, they can't actually walk off the pad fast enough, and that's when maybe you'll consider another factory. But so far, relatively quiet. A couple units killed by ZLO. I think he was able to snipe off 1 or 2 metal extractors, which can be very annoying, especially if the commander is still stuck at home on the outlying edges. But Randy's moving his commander forward. And the choice to bring the commander out is a very big one in 1v1. Well, first things first, if you lose the commander, you lose the game. All right? Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter. You don't have to kill every building. You don't have to kill the units. There's nothing else but the commander itself. And as time goes on and the units get stronger and more numerous, it becomes more and more risky to have your commander out on the field. We've already seen, even recently, some games end dramatically with one player being ahead the whole game and then getting a bit ambitious with their commander and ending up losing it, like the golden snitch of Bar. The grunts fanning out over to the north side. And we see across the field. Now, I think it's important to note the lack of vision. From the observer perspective, it's a lot easier to tell what's going on, but a lot of Bar comes down to vision, which can be blocked by just terrain in general throughout the map. Radar can be blocked by the same thing, so it's always a priority. You get radar on high ground. And for now, ZLO might have vision over much of the map, but his radar and vision coverage isn't perfect, which means if we go to the full view, he doesn't know about this incisor attack coming around over to the top left corner, already queued up. You can see the potential wind turbines in sight. Though Randy is also in the dark about things. With vehicles, you just don't have as many units early. They're more expensive. They're a little hard to maneuver around. They can't go up hills like bots can because they've invented legs. So that means Randy is reliant more on taking the initiative. The vehicles can drive right past any defensive lines if they find a weak point, and trying to exploit that now. The nuances of radar and vision, I think, are one of those, maybe not high level, but definitely mid to high level concepts that, one, I'm not super confident in talking about myself, as well as has so much nuance to it that can make all the difference. Well, we see clearly that the grunts were ready to intercept another incisor attack down the center. Gonna poke and take out one of the metal extractors as well. Overall, ZLO, his army value lacking, but economically looking quite good across the board. Looks like I may have spoken too soon. That wind farm might be completed within the next 20 minutes or so from that single bot. All right. Randy taking out the metal extractor with a light laser turret. The buildings in general are quite fragile, but turrets can definitely hold things down against small groups, almost required, especially with Randy going vehicles here. He's not going to be able to respond to the bots maneuvering around. His unit count is just lower in general, but as you can see in the army value, it is a valuable set of units overall. Another incisor attack lined up, as both players have filled in the majority of their metal extractors, though there's still plenty to work towards. Zilo has been quite limited. He hasn't been able to take that northwestern corner really at all. He's locking down the lines. He's got some thugs coming out of the factories, and the grunts battling. No, not there. Still working on the camera work, but the grunts will shut down the incisors as well. Another advantage to the bots against smaller groups of vehicles is flanking damage. When you hit a unit, it activates flanking damage potential. So that first hit, even if it's by a single grunt laser, will activate the flanking. And if another hit comes in from the back of that unit, it'll do significantly more damage. I believe up to 3 times as much. So that is how you can take down larger units with hordes of smaller ones, as it's just not really able to defend. From my understanding, there aren't really any units that have directional defense. It's just usually the back is facing away from the enemy. But that isn't always... I'm not actually sure if a unit turns. I believe the direction is relevant to where it was originally hit, not where on the unit it was hit, like relative to the map. But I'm actually not sure about that. Flanking damage is one of those details alongside the accuracy of units in general. As you can see, the thugs, that is a lot of thugs. All right, and he's marching. Right now, ZLO living his absolute best thug life as he just blasts his way through. There is really no match here. The incisors easily overrun. The thugs just shrugging off the light laser turrets. Finally, some brutes out. The heavier tanks to match them. Kind of the thugs of the vehicle plant. But quite expensive and low in number at the moment. The army advantage has shifted over to ZLO. And this thug push, the commander waltzing away. I believe thugs are around the same speed, but there's only so much real estate to work with. This push clearly having quite an impact, even though the metal per second is dramatically going towards Randy now. The thugs are marching. Neither player even close to getting tier 2 tech. We're going to be brawling it out with tier 1 for now. We can see on the other side the incisor counterattack. They're pretty mediocre compared to the strength of the brutes and thugs here. So definitely some heavier hitters. Pretty much the heaviest units you can get at tier 1. Now fighting it out. Trying to get a twin guard turret. Much more helpful than the light laser turrets. It's not going to happen though. Not sure what's happening. The incisor attack is actually making a lot of progress up north while the brutes are trying to hold the grunts. And he actually resurrected some of the incisors himself. But he will crush through and potentially get to the energy. The thugs are spreading out around the lines. So far, getting very close to the wind farms of Randy. Quite spread out in order to minimize the chain reactions. The brutes are starting to win the brawl. Does he have a bot lab to resurrect them? I don't believe so. That's another downside of going vehicles, is the lack of the utility that the bots have. But the wind farm, my life's work! The construction bot will die alongside the entire wind farm in the northeastern corner of the map. And the thug push is mostly stalled out. The net result of this? The metal per second still dramatically shifting, though there's a lot of reclaim from these wrecks. Each of them worth, the brutes are worth 100 metal, the thugs 84, I believe it's around 70%, and I was corrected. In order to resurrect, it only costs energy, and to reclaim, it costs nothing but time and build power. So reclaiming these units is going to be quite a lot of resources here for Randy, as the commander coming up to help out as well, confident. At the same time, the thugs, mostly unchallenged to the south. The vehicle plant itself, if he could actually cut off the vehicle plant, that's all of the production. He's not going to have any more units. The energy being taken down. The incisors cutting through to the north. The thugs trying to match him, but they're just too slow to respond quickly, which it was not nearly as profound as I thought it would be. Brutes brutalizing the thugs finally, but the thug count, let's see on the map. There are 41 thugs against 23 brutes. Army value in favor of ZLO yet again. Finally, wait, whoa, what am I watching? Both players are trying to put together laser turrets. A bit awkward here. Well, Randy's actually running out of resources. Who's gonna get it first? It looks like Randy is running out of resources, so he's not actually able to finish the turret. Despite having 2 constructors, he beats it by just a bit and is reclaiming his opponent's turret. Meanwhile, the brawl continues. A few of the... I think he's just adding in vehicles himself. And some res bots. That's a huge deal, putting it together here. The brutes trying to repair some of them with the commander. The res bots supporting. The brutes kind of stuck in. The wrecks themselves of both the thugs and the brutes do have collision on the ground, making it harder for the vehicles to move through. The bots don't have nearly as much of an issue with it. But not moving back, the res bots maybe getting a little forward and eating some brute shots directly to the metaphorical face. I'm not sure if they actually have faces. Ocular sense. Well, don't worry about it. But the brutes rolling through now. As the thugs getting thinned out, and again, Randy will have a lot of wrecks on the field to potentially reclaim. A little surprised he hasn't added in a bot lab to start to resurrect them himself. Oh, but the thugs get by again. He used an exploiter. An armed metal extractor. I think a smart move at this stage in order to have some basic... It turns your metal extractor into a turret, so you don't need to double up on that. Well, apparently you do, as the thugs just ran him over. Standoff continues. Meanwhile, the constructors, another exploiter to the north side, but overrun by the resurrected incisors. And, well, the constructors are trying to reclaim these units before they can get killed off by them. It looks like finally they'll get taken down, mostly by units reclaimed or resurrected by the res bots. And the standoff continues. Overall metal production goes heavily to Randy, as well as energy production. But the mobility of the thugs continues to vex him somewhat. The commander, dangerously close. A lot of those brutes are already bruised in this fight, though. So the thugs are marching through, trying to get on top of everything. Use some of that extra flanking damage and potentially friendly fire as well, but... fighting into a defensive line with turrets behind seems a bit optimistic. The resurrected units to the north starting to cut down some of the outlying metal extractors, and we still don't see tier 2. Neither player feeling comfortable enough. ZLO has no metal in the bank. Randy actually has enough to potentially go tier 2. He has 2,700. Does he... He has the build power, but he's not able to... There it is. The tier 2 lab is queued up. He has so many resources in the bank, he's almost wasting metal at this point. Anything over that cap when you're not in a team game is just wasted. So... But of course, the tier 2 lab costing 2,800 metal and a whole heap and helping of energy. Yeah, energy. Oh no, please don't stop having meaning word. It's one of those words you say it too many times and no longer. No, stop thinking. All right, good recovery. Tier 2 Tiger tanks right off the bat, not even bothering with a Tier 2 constructor in order to get that tech. There's so many thugs. 43, wait, let's go to the whole map. 45 thugs. You know, the Brute's trying to hold the line. Another gang of units, almost entirely resurrected, fighting through the armed extractors. The standoff continues, Randy grabbing all this metal. There's 4.5k still on the ground. More than enough to fund quite an army at the moment. And the army value, well, the army value is actually slightly in favor of ZLO in terms of metal. Finally, the armed extractors will take enough of a toll to slow this down, but even more thugs to the north side. This is truly a quantity versus quality sort of situation. Oh, a Zar hits the field, and the thugs will be forced back. There is no competing with that. I think he got, no, he got a couple Tigers, and now the Zars. So, how does ZLO respond? He's building more and more. He's trying to rebuild those wind farms. There's a single rocket bot, which is outranging the armed metal extractors, but the Zars, just blasting the AoE, quite apparent there. But he's gonna try to get surrounded by the thugs. He's looking the other way. Gonna blast his way through, but I think the flanking damage, you can see the indicators there. 18%, 10%. This thing, 990 metal in the wreckage. 140 per thug. But the Zar, wait, did he not build another one? He did. Is worth 1,600. So, 16, no, that's not how math works. Like 12 thugs to put together one of these. And it feels like ZLO has taken back a lot of map control. Thugs might not be fast, but the Zars certainly not winning any speed runs anytime soon. And the commander, Randy! Randy getting a little bit randy as he goes forward into the potential production line. The Zars holding down the southern flank, but some of the resurrected insurgents, the Brutes working their way through the north. On top of everything so far. And meanwhile, a massive line of thugs is working its way forward. I don't see any tier 2 units to deal with this. Thugs as well down the center. Another Zar trying to deal with it. Meanwhile, the Zar to the south starting to get overrun, but here comes ZLO still on tier 1 tech. The Zar's blasting away. Another one in production. But metal per second now goes to ZLO. Has he gotten tier 2? He's got a tier 2 bot lab done, but he's losing some of his production at the back. Randy might have to hold the line himself. I think there's enough Brutes to hold for now. So far, ZLO agrees. Another Zar gonna get taken down. And is he resurrecting? No, he's reclaiming it. And that means ZLO's gonna have so much metal. The more mobile unit composition. Zars are almost a turret with how slow they move. That's why they're usually, well, much of the time combined with air transport to maneuver them around. Kind of like a Reaver from StarCraft Brood War. Honestly, I think that's the best comparison. Zars are the Reavers of Beyond All Reason. All right, Randy kind of boxed in. You can see from his vision, he knows what's out there. And he's doing a lot of damage with the run-bys on the Brutes to the north. And the Zars blasting through, and he... with a vengeance. But overall, the map is dark and full of thugs. And I don't know if he's spotted the tier 2 tech quite yet. So, this one Brute, 11 kills, most of them metal extractors, knocks out yet another one, takes out the radar, and he will be spotting the very first... Wait, he still technically doesn't... Like I said, vision is very small for basic units. Radar mobile radar units, and radar itself has both the radar coverage as well as a lot of basic vision. So they're just general scouts, and that's why they're combined in on top of, you know, providing radar. Though neither player has one at the moment. The thugs to the north. But Randy, he still has way more metal per second because he has tier 2 metal extractors, which are worth 4 times as much. These are dragging in 7.3 per second overall. Meanwhile, no tier 2 metal extractors yet. Just now pumping them out. This, quite a jam-packed setup there. Well, the Brute's moving forward. The Fiends. Fast assault bots. Probably the weakest of the tier 2 units, but very much capable of driving back these attacks. They can translate a losing situation into a rout very quickly, and immediately Randy turned it around. The Fiends not actually giving chase at the moment, as he's trying to micro around here. What is in there? The air transport of a construction bot. Already adding in. Already, we're 22 minutes in. This has not been a short game. And it seems we're not much closer to a conclusion. Overall, metal production has favored Randy, as well as energy. He even has a fusion now. Just a basic fusion, but 1100 energy. I don't know if he spotted the air transport and is now inspired, but some shurikens could definitely make the difference on the field. Meanwhile, the Zar just blasting through with the Brutes covering the flank. The Fiends down the center. ZLO has secured a lot of the ground on the map. But now with Randy's economy starting to scale into the later game, that's not quite as important as it was early on when controlling more of the ground meant more metal overall. Once the tier 2 metal extractors come out, it'd be great to have more, but we're starting to get to the point where you have enough energy to start converting it into metal. As we see the advanced energy converter. And that scales effectively infinitely. You never run out of resources beyond all reason. The metal extractors don't dry up. You just, at some point, you don't even need them at all. We're far from that point. But the principles apply. Twin guard turrets, way stronger than the light laser turret counterparts, especially at dealing with anything but a fully committed attack. They are required, you do require construction bots to build those, is why they're a little more rare and more expensive, of course. Scouting aircraft go through, will get a beat on pretty much everything that ZLO has. Some anti-air is now popping out of the bot lab. In fact, he could see it popping out. He saw it with the scout aircraft. So once you have vision of something, it gets tagged on radar with its icon. So that's another benefit. Like, for example, Randy doesn't know what's over here because he hasn't actually spotted it. He only knows that there are contacts on radar. But what it could be, he's not sure of yet. Until he gets that vision and can assign a face to the tag. Or a name to the face. Whatever makes sense. But the Zars have pushed forward. The tanks are somewhat surrounded. Army value again. Same story goes to ZLO. But everything else, the economy, all goes to Randy. Damage overall, actually slight favor for ZLO, but that could change momentarily. What do we got back here? A Fiend drop in the back corner. Using those air transports to get by, and the Zars are being overrun by the Fiends as well. Not so good at dealing with these very fast units scattered throughout the field. He's gonna overrun the front lines. The commander forced to retreat. One of the Zars goes down, leaving just one behind. Looks like the transport was shot down by the fighters. He spotted it coming in. But of course, you gotta keep the commander alive. Another Zar being targeted by the surviving thugs. More moving in from the north side. But a Tiger tank attack striking through the center. A lot of the metal extractors over to the southern side, the south east, are going to be cleared up. Is there any more tech? Those scout planes are actually still alive. I'm not sure if they provide the extra vision on the ground. I think they do. Unclear exactly, but they've landed with no other orders in the corner. He could come back around with them. Some thugs moving out. Some pop-up batteries. Like a shotgun blast at relatively long range. Very solid tier 2. Meanwhile, the tanks have made it all the way into the corner where the fiends will finally immolate them. The shurikens try to help as well, but these tiger tanks have done quite a number on this side of the map. Meanwhile, the thugs lined up. Another army comes through the center as Randy continues to push through. The power of the vehicles outstripping the capability of the bots to outmaneuver them so far. And Randy maintains a better economy and now has the army value lead. The lines have been drawn. A Zar on the back, Tigers on the second line, and Brutes to lead the charge. Though maybe biting off a little more than he could chew at the moment. The Zars blasting, and the Shurikens come in trying to stun as much as they can. If they can slow down the Zar, that's really the backbone of this entire push. Shurikens trying to stun it, and it's been taken. The fighters come in to knock him out, but the Zar is isolated. And with it, can be killed. So Randy loses a key component of his army. But are those missile tanks? Thought I heard missiles. Yeah, he's got a Banisher missile tank, which has incredible range and can pretty much snipe. It's effectively a siege tank. If the Zar is a Reaver, the Banisher is kind of like a siege tank with how hard it hits, but relatively long cooldown. You might be like, isn't the artillery like a siege tank? It's like a... Okay, so this is like a StarCraft 1 siege tank. Whereas I believe it's the Quakers. Yes, the Quakers are more like a StarCraft 2 siege tank. More maneuverable, a little cheaper, but don't hit as hard. Now, the thugs trying to move forward. The missiles recharging. Blasting through the lines of thugs, but the numbers just aren't there. More getting taken out, but the Zar clearly struggling to find targets. Missile tank taken down, closing in. The Brutes are repositioning to the north side. Both players looking for vulnerabilities constantly. And another Zar? Well, the thugs are thinning out, and this one, finally, will hold. He's been overrun so many times. I don't know if he's been resurrecting. We got some tier 1 res bots coming out. Another fusion on the way. Energy production goes solidly to Randy. 2.3 to 1.6k. ZLO, though, has taken back a metal production lead. And it seems like he's added a lot more tier 2 metal. Yeah, he has like 11 of them. Whereas on the other side, well, he has 17. I think a lot of it has to do with Reclaim at the moment. Meanwhile, Tigers blasting through. One Zar with each battle group here. As Randy... Go to the Randy cam for a moment. He resurrected one of the Zars down the center. And the revolution will be stopped there. The commander still kind of close to the front lines, whereas ZLO, I believe, has had his commander. Oh, now realizing that the Fiends are marching through the res bots on the run. Try to get... Well, the Fiends will chase down most of them. Metal Extractor explodes and does a lot of damage to everything nearby. And again, the Fiends will overrun the lines. Army value still heavily in favor of Randy, though. Not sure how ZLO is interested in reconciling that. Still no tier 3, no experimental gantry. And these are the tier 2, the advanced exploiter. Honestly, a bit unoriginal in the name, but the tier 2 metal extractors with a lot more damage, acting as a turret emplacement, making it very hard. The battlefield strewn with wrecks that right now ZLO is reclaiming. Meanwhile, the Tigers still blasting through the south side. Some of the resurrected Tigers are fighting against them, but the Zar will break the lines. Meanwhile, Fiends overrunning the front. And battles happening on 3 different fronts. Fiends in the north, but the Zar will blast through everything, including friendly tanks. Another couple Zars are holding down the center, and it looks like Randy will actually be holding across the board. A concerted push across the entire map for ZLO will be shut down by the sheer power of these tier 2 tanks. Honestly, Zars kind of like tier 2.5, I feel. Whereas Fiends are more like a tier 1.5 unit. And that kind of shows up in the army value as well. So now ZLO is in a troublesome position. He's got how many he's got 39 construction turrets. And he's microing them. Like, the Fiends are being pumped out by the second. Both players with a lot of metal income at this stage. So build power becomes even more important. How many Zars on the field? 6 of them, scattered throughout the map. Just giving a different perspective. Go to the ZLO side of things for a moment. Take a look at his vision, how he's playing it. Interesting, he still has the player camera at the perspective of the map. But there's still a lot to push through. He's got a lot of vision. He sees the army, and he's still reliant almost entirely on the Fiends to get the damage done. Exploiting their vulnerability against the exploiting their mobility against the much less mobile Zars and Banishers. On their own, well, still though, the Fiends pale in comparison to the damage output of the Zars, but the front line as well, trying to break through, but the Zars are just blasting. Not even being contested, he's just running by them now. Truly going for the quantity over quality approach. If he can find the commander, I don't think he has the output. The metal extractors on their own doing plenty of damage. As Randy beset by the Fiends, but holding strongly so far. One of his Zars was resurrected. The Fiends still trying to overrun on the eastern flank. Res bots are pushing through the gap created. Fiends on top of even more Zars going down. If you self-destruct them, they do even more damage. Another Zar taken down, building more turret batteries. Res bots at a premium for either side. Their value, honestly, possibly the best unit in the game, the Res bots. Because technically they can bring any other unit that your enemy had into the game. Speaking of, the resurrected Zar down the center, holding it down now for ZLO. His endless stream of feeds. Honestly, he might need another bot lab. He can't build. They're coming out of the plant at about the speed he can start constructing another one. He's starting to bank up a little bit of extra metal, which is not really a bad thing. That's not one of those bad problems. If you have extra metal, you can maybe eventually tech up. He's adding in some of the air power as well. Both sides, gunships on the field for Randy, as we've taken to the skies as well. The fighters contesting one another. I don't know how many basic anti-air bots there are, but the gunships might not have much damage output, but they're completely uncontested. The Fiends unable to hit air at all. Well, really nothing on the ground here has anti-air capability. So the gunships are just chewing their way through and forcing the ground army back. Randy still holding the northwestern flank. The Zars, the battle line is drawn, and now anti-air is required. He's building some of the Trashers, Trashers, the tier 1 anti-air bots, as well as the Manticores, which are the tier 2 version. They got their little flak guns alongside it all. There's not much ground to air for anyone. I believe the missile tanks can actually hit, but otherwise, yeah, doing a pretty good job knocking out of the sky. Always looks really cool, too. Is that anti-nuke? A Prevailer anti-nuke emplacement. He hasn't seen much of what ZLO's been up to, so... The Tigers just blast through another. Trying to build some basic turrets. Will get it. Some grunts added in just to add some chaff down on the front side of things. A whole bunch of anti-air. The army value is slightly in favor of Randy. The energy production dramatically in favor. Looks like the wind just died, and not even a single Is there even a single fusion? No. Entirely reliant on wind energy is ZLO, which has the downside of sometimes dropping to near 0 on this map. It's at 4, so its energy is suffering dramatically, whereas Randy has the fusions, which don't care that much about it. The gunships coming in. The Zars are holding. There's just way too much right now. Gunships knocking out the small groups. There is some anti-air, but the tier 1 anti-air doesn't seem to be able to compete very easily. Even the turret emplacements are struggling against the gunships. The high ground being overrun. The gunships will be driven back for now. Fighters looking to contest. I think Randy has the numbers. He's going to knock them out of the sky. And having vision for the fighters is such a big deal. Which, he actually flies over. He didn't realize the anti-air bots were underneath. Randy gonna end up losing all his fighters here. He went a little bit too far. And that may open up an opportunity for ZLO to take a tech advantage in the air. Zars, I don't know how many times they've traded hands. I think the kill counter gets a reset. But this Zar has been resurrected at least one. I have a feeling it's like 2 or 3 times. They just keep coming back to life. Randy maintains that income lead. Is that a nuclear... a nuke launcher? Well... there is no anti-nuke from ZLO. If he starts building it now, but that could be a very dramatic ending to this game. As Randy seems to have found the space. He struggled to push through the seemingly endless lines. There's 81 fiends. There's 1,000 units and buildings on the field right now, which is relatively low in the grand scheme of things, but in 1v1 it is hard to reach such numbers. As there's only so much space and time. But feels like Randy is going to go with the nuclear option, as opposed to trying to break through the very mobile lines of fiends. The gunship's still exploring forward. There's very limited anti-air with this, so... the one trasher is not going to be enough to deal with a group of gunships. It's a bit more on the high ground, but he's actually just fighting the turrets, because those are tier 2 gunships against tier 1 turrets. More fighters coming in for both sides. The gunships unable to compete with them. More like StarCraft 2 Banshees is their purpose. But the nuke is building. You have to build the silo, and then after, I want to say like 60 or 90 seconds, you put together another one. But is there any anti-nuke? No. It's not on his mind even a little bit. When was the last time ZLO saw anything of Randy's base? It's been a while. He hasn't been able to get any scout aircraft by. The fiends by the dozens. I have a feeling he's going to hear nuclear launch detected, and then we'll see the biggest attack of the game. Will it be enough? He's sending out 2 tier 2 scouts. Randy is clearly trying to get a bead. I think you just go for the production. He sees no anti-nuke. It's time. He's building up. It's still about 30 seconds out. It does spend metal and energy to build up. Randy's moving forward. This is the best way to cover for it, is if you can make some actual progress on offense. And he is doing so. Keep his mind off of what else you could be doing back at home. Honestly, ZLO probably thinks he's going towards tier 3. Not quite the case. The Zar, another resurrected one. You can tell by the little halos on top. Direct hit, obliterating the fiends. And the attack is moving through both to the north, to the south. The center is held by Randy as well. So the fiends will counterattack, but the nuclear missile is almost completed. The fiends getting blasted by the Zars. They're trying to overrun, but the sheer amount of damage the Zars are able to do. The Fiends overrunning the field for now, but the gunships move in to respond. The Banisher's helping out. He's able to drive back the attack, but it was a decoy. It's happening! Nuclear launch, where is it targeted? Dead center of the production. What a guy. He taps out of the game before the nuke could even land, thus denying us the excitement.
So that's how it ends.
So that's how it ends. I'm gonna have the same conversation here with ZLO that I had with Clem from StarCraft 2. Like yesterday, because he's always like this. It's over, but just let it happen. Let us see the nuke. So we didn't even see the mushroom cloud because of him tapping out and self-destructing his commander, knowing, yes, it was over. Yes, he was already in a tough spot throughout the game against the power of the Zars and the Banishers. But just let it happen. When you get a nuke, you'll want to let it happen. So I hope in the future we can see total annihilation. But Randy holds the line throughout the game. The bots try to make their way through, but Randy is clearly quite adept at putting together the right unit composition in the right place and holding the line enough. He ends up with 20, well, maybe a little off because it's still going, but overall, with 40,000 more metal produced and a lot more energy, that focus on the fusions instead of going for pure wind energy paying off. He's able to get the tier 2 early enough and the momentum with it, as well as the tier 2 air plant and the gunships to hold the line. So Randy takes this one in quite a dramatic exchange. But hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully it made your day a little bit better. And if you got the means of motivation, be awesome. Check out. Oh my. Okay, we get it, guys. I hear the units building in the background. But if you got the means of motivation, be awesome. Check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free for now. So hopefully this made your day a little bit better. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Let me know what you want to see. Any comments or criticisms, especially on the camera work for Beyond All Reason. And otherwise, good luck, have fun. Stay unreasonable.